They called her Hollywood's macabre icon, but the real horror story wasn't on screen. It was behind the cameras. From a grandfather who terrorized her daily, to a beauty standard so cruel it required surgical transformation, Carolyn Jones lived through nightmares that would destroy most people. But she kept fighting, kept performing. Even when her body was failing, even when Hollywood threw her away, she refused to quit. Her final act of defiance will leave you speechless. Abandoned by her father. There's something absolutely heartbreaking about a child who lights up every room they enter, only to watch that light get dimmed by circumstances beyond their control. Carolyn shared the same birthday as her mother Chloe, April 28th, creating this beautiful, special bond between them that should have been the foundation of a happy childhood. But happy wasn't in the cards for little Carolyn Jones. Named after actress Carol Lombard because her mother was this huge entertainment enthusiast, who also named her other daughter Bette after Bette Davis, Carolyn was destined for performance from day one. She was this imaginative kid, just like her mother, winning awards at school for speech, poetry, and dramatics. You could see the star quality even then. Her father was a barber in Amarillo, Texas, trying his best to keep the family afloat. But when the Great Depression hit, trying wasn't enough anymore. Every day became a battle for survival. The bills kept coming, the money kept disappearing, and the tension in that house got so thick you could have cut it with a knife. Carolyn noticed everything. Kids always do, don't they? The arguments that stopped when she walked into a room, the cold silences at dinner, her father's increasing anger, and her mother's growing distance. She was this sensitive child who absorbed every bit of that toxic atmosphere. Then came 1934, the year that shattered everything. One morning, Carolyn woke up to find her father packing his bags. No explanation, no goodbye. Just a man who decided he was done with the responsibility of being a husband and father. He walked out that door and never came back. Tragically, after he abandoned the family, Carolyn never got to meet her father again. Can you imagine? 7 years old, watching the man who was supposed to protect you just leave, like you never mattered at all? But if you think that was the worst thing that happened to little Carolyn, you haven't heard anything yet, because what her mother did next would unleash something even darker. Living life in terror. Carolyn's mother Chloe was agoraphobic, making it extremely difficult for her to cope with being suddenly single. So she made what seemed like the only logical choice: pack up the girls and move back in with her parents. Safety in numbers, right? A support system for her daughters during this traumatic time. Wrong. Dead wrong. What Chloe didn't know, or maybe she did, and felt she had no other options, was that she was trading one nightmare for another. Her grandfather initially believed she should become a doctor or lawyer and didn't support her acting dreams, which was frustrating enough. But that was nothing compared to what happened behind closed doors. You know how some people can be completely different when nobody's watching? Carolyn's grandfather was one of those people. In public, he was the concerned grandparent taking in his daughter and granddaughters during hard times. In private, he was a man with serious anger management issues who decided that little Carolyn made the perfect target for his rage. The yelling was constant, over nothing, over everything. She often found herself facing the brunt of his anger, leaving her terrified due to his rage. Here's this child who's already been abandoned by her father, and now the man who's supposed to be her safe haven is making her life a living hell. But here's the cruelest part: she couldn't do anything about it. Where was she gonna go? She was 7 years old. If she complained too much, if she made waves, she and her mother would be homeless. So she endured it. Day after day, year after year, this little girl lived in terror because she had no other choice. She became engrossed in Hollywood fan publications and other things to help her escape reality. She listened to her favorite performers, Danny Kaye and Spike Jonze, when she couldn't go to movies due to her illness. Those magazines and radio shows became her lifeline, proof that somewhere out there, life could be different, better, more magical. But just when she was starting to dream about escaping that house, fate dealt her another devastating blow that would chain her to that reality for years to come. Bedridden and shut out from the world. Just when you think this story can't get more heartbreaking, life decided to pile on another tragedy. Carolyn was diagnosed with severe asthma. Her condition was so severe, it became life-threatening and often restricted her from childhood activities. We're not talking about a little wheeze here and there. This was the kind of asthma that could end your life without warning. She was often housebound for weeks at a time, stuck in her bedroom, watching the world go by through her window while fighting just to breathe. Think about that for a second. This kid, who's already dealing with abandonment and abuse, now can't even leave her room most days. She spent her time reading as many movie fan magazines as she could get her hands on, dreaming of a different life. Those magazines weren't just entertainment. They were survival tools, proof that escape was possible. The isolation was crushing. While other kids were playing outside, going to school, living normal lives, Carolyn was fighting for each breath in a bedroom that probably felt more like a prison cell. Her condition was so severe, it became life-threatening. Imagine being that young and knowing that your next breath might be your last. But here's what gets me about Carolyn's story. Even then, even while literally fighting for her life, she never gave up on her dreams. Those movie magazines weren't just helping her pass time. They were feeding something inside her, this absolute determination to get out and become somebody. She found strength in her favorite songs and imagined life after recovery. When she finally recovered enough to leave that bedroom, she'd made up her mind. She was going after those dreams, no matter what it took. And that determination led her to discover the Pasadena Playhouse, one of the most famous acting schools of the time. According to one report, she lied about her age and gave her birth date as 1930 instead of 1933 to get into the Playhouse at age 15, 3 years younger than the required minimum age. Think about that. 15 years old and already willing to lie, manipulate, whatever it took to chase her dreams. She convinced her grandparents to let her enroll, and for the first time in her life, things were looking up. She had her eyes fixed on her goals, laser-focused on becoming an actress. Then she fell in love. And not just with anyone, with someone nobody approved of. A forbidden young love. You know how they say love makes you do crazy things? Well, Carolyn was about to prove that saying right. She met 27-year-old Don Donaldson while both were studying at the Pasadena Playhouse. This was 1949, and Carolyn was 19, which doesn't sound bad now, but back then, an 8-year age gap between a teenager and an adult man raised serious eyebrows. But Carolyn had never been one to back down from what she wanted, had she? This was the girl who'd lied about her age to get into acting school, who'd survived abandonment and abuse and near-fatal illness. A little social disapproval wasn't going to stop her. They fell hard for each other. The pair met in 1949, and it was love at first sight. They were completely smitten by each other, and they couldn't hide it. But everyone around them was shaking their heads, warning them it wouldn't work, that the age difference was too much. Did Carolyn listen? Of course not. Their marriage lasted from 1950 to 1951. They got married despite everyone's disapproval and divorced exactly 1 year later. Sometimes love isn't enough, especially when you're both young and trying to figure out who you are. But here's what I love about Carolyn's response to that failed marriage. She didn't waste time wallowing. She made a decision that would define the rest of her career. No more distractions. After their divorce, Carolyn made the final decision to block out anything that didn't contribute to her dreams of being an actress. She was ready to do whatever it took to become a star, even if it meant going under the knife. The price she paid for stardom. What happened next is going to make you absolutely furious at an industry that valued appearance over talent, conformity over authenticity. She graduated from the Pasadena Playhouse in 1950, probably thinking her talent and training would be enough to open doors. She'd worked so hard, overcome so much, developed her craft at one of the most prestigious acting schools in the country. Surely that would count for something, right? Wrong again. Hollywood took one look at Carolyn Jones and basically said, thanks, but no thanks. You're not pretty enough for stardom. She came to a shocking and devastating realization. Her talent alone was not enough to make her famous in Hollywood. The industry required more from actresses at the time, and it wasn't about acting ability. So what did Carolyn do? She made a decision that's both heartbreaking and infuriating. She decided to do everything in her power to meet the industry's beauty standards. This decision led to her undergoing painful and extremely expensive cosmetic surgery. Think about this for a second. Her grandfather, Charles W. Baker, paid for the costly cosmetic surgery. The same grandfather who'd terrorized her childhood was now funding her transformation because even he could see that talent wasn't enough. By the time the procedure was done, Carolyn's appearance changed completely. Her makeover left her with a pointed nose, blonde hair, and a completely different posture. She also worked hard to lose her Texas accent. She literally became a different person to chase Hollywood's approval. She later wrote in her diary that she resented how people suddenly treated her differently after the surgery, noting that her acting abilities were always the same. Can you imagine that pain? People who'd ignored her when she looked like herself, suddenly wanted to know her when she looked like Hollywood's idea of beauty. She was naturally a strawberry blonde, but first dyed her hair black for the bachelor party in 1957, later explaining, "When I was a blonde, people used to look at me and think I was attractive and feather-headed, but a brunette is a chase and conquer type girl." She told a reporter in 1953, "Two things are of equal importance: working hard on your talent and your grooming, and being prepared physically and career-wise. Your appearance means so much in making a first impression." Notice how she's trying to rationalize it, make it sound like a business decision rather than the devastating compromise it really was. The transformation worked, at least initially. A talent scout noticed her while she was performing in a theater, working as an understudy at the Players Ring Theater when she stepped in after the star left to get married. She aced her screen test, signed with Paramount Studios, and everything looked perfect for about 5 minutes. The turning point that turned into a dead end. 1952 should have been Carolyn's breakthrough year. She landed a role in The Turning Point, made her big screen debut, and for a brief shining moment thought she'd finally made it. The recognition felt incredible after all those years of struggle. But Hollywood has a way of building you up just to knock you down harder. Her career suffered after her breakthrough role because she didn't get any other major roles to keep her career afloat. Paramount Studios provided only 2 minor roles for her after her big break, and this was not enough to sustain her career. 2 roles. 2. After completely transforming herself, after sacrificing her identity for Hollywood's approval, they threw her 2 tiny roles and called it a day. When Paramount let her 6-month contract lapse due to television's impact on the studio system, she quipped, "They let me and 16 secretaries go." But you can hear the pain behind that joke, can't you? Here's a woman who'd literally reconstructed her face for this industry, and they tossed her aside like yesterday's newspaper. When her contract expired, Carolyn found herself in the position she'd been trying so desperately to avoid. Broke, alone, and wondering what went wrong. She didn't make as much money as she thought from the films she had appeared in, so her finances were in shambles. It got so bad that she had to contact her sister and ask her to move in with her so they could split the rent. The woman who was supposed to be a Hollywood star was scrambling to afford basic housing. All her efforts to revive her big screen career fell flat. The phone wasn't ringing. The opportunities weren't coming. Hollywood had turned its back on her, so she had no choice but to turn to television. Television saved her, at least temporarily. The actress was able to get some TV roles, and slowly but surely her finances improved, and she was able to get back on her feet. And that's when she met someone who would change everything. While working in theater, she met fellow Texan Aaron Spelling, an aspiring writer who would later become a television legend. They bonded over their shared ambition and their desire to make it big in the industry. Plus, they both had fantastic senses of humor. Finally, someone who understood her drive, her dreams, her determination to succeed despite everything Hollywood had thrown at her. The future was looking bright, or so she thought, when love required her to make the first move. Here's where Carolyn's story gets both romantic and revolutionary for its time. She believed that she had found her soul mate in Aaron Spelling, but their love story would require her to break every social convention of the 1950s. In 1960, Aaron said, "Carolyn is the only person in the world I need. We are more than in love. We are each other's best friends." That's beautiful, right? But in the early 1950s, when they first got together, Aaron wasn't in a position to make that kind of declaration official. Meanwhile, Carolyn's career was getting another boost. She was chosen to play a role in House of Wax, which was a 3D film. This was a big deal because there were very few 3D films at the time. It was only the second 3D film ever released. Being part of such groundbreaking cinema restored her confidence and made her one of the most sought-after actresses again. But here's the thing about Carolyn. Success in her career made her want to cement her personal life, too. She looked at Aaron, this struggling writer she was head over heels for, and she wanted forever. Aaron was still struggling financially and felt he wasn't able to propose to Carolyn. So what did she do? Something absolutely scandalous for 1953. She finally proposed to him. Can you imagine the courage that took? Women didn't propose in the 1950s. Ever. It just wasn't done. Aaron was probably shocked, but he said yes. They were married in April 1953. And though neither was earning much, they really enjoyed each other and their life together. Many saw them as an ideal couple. For a brief moment, everything seemed perfect. Career on the upswing, marriage to her best friend, hope for the future stretching ahead of them. Then came the opportunity that would have changed everything, if only fate hadn't intervened at the worst possible moment. The role that got away. What I'm about to tell you will make you want to scream at the universe on Carolyn's behalf. When the casting executive at Columbia Pictures contacted Carolyn to inform her that she had been chosen to play the role of Lorene Alma in the upcoming film From Here to Eternity, her heart leapt for joy. The role was actually written specifically for her. Let that sink in for a moment. Written specifically for her. This wasn't just any role. This was going to be the performance that launched her into the stratosphere of Hollywood stardom. The casting executive assured her that as soon as she passed the screen test, the role was automatically hers. Carolyn threw herself into preparation mode with everything she had. This was it. This was her moment. After all the struggles, all the sacrifices, all the times Hollywood had let her down, finally, her big break was here. She prepared thoroughly, probably rehearsing every line until she could say them in her sleep. The screen test was scheduled, and she was ready. Nothing could go wrong now, except everything went wrong. On the night before her screen test, Carolyn began suffering from bouts of pneumonia. She felt terribly ill, and she had to be rushed to the hospital. Unfortunately, her condition was extremely bad, and she almost lost her life that night. Picture this scene. Carolyn lying in a hospital bed, fighting for her life, knowing that miles away, her career-defining opportunity was slipping through her fingers. Clearly, she couldn't show up for the screen test the following day, and this led to her losing the life-changing opportunity. The role was eventually given to another actress, Donna Reed, who was 9 years older than Carolyn. The film turned out to be a major hit, and Donna Reed won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for the role that was originally Carolyn's, an Academy Award for the role that was written specifically for her while she was lying in a hospital bed fighting pneumonia. Can you imagine watching the Academy Awards ceremony, seeing someone else hold the trophy for your role, deliver the acceptance speech that should have been yours? Carolyn watched the biggest opportunity of her life pass by, and she wondered why fate was so cruel. But here's what I love about Carolyn Jones. She didn't let this destroy her. She then made up her mind to work on a comeback plan and prove herself in the industry. Her plans and efforts later paid off, but not for long. Just when she was getting back on her feet, she felt terribly ill again. Which brings us to one of the most bizarre stories in Hollywood history, the time she refused to kiss Elvis Presley. The day she turned down the king. Back in the 1950s, Elvis Presley was said to be one of the most charming actors, and the ladies loved him. So you can imagine how shocking it was when Carolyn Jones, of all people, didn't want to kiss him on set. This happened during the filming of King Creole, which is widely regarded as Elvis Presley's best movie. While he was preparing to join the army, Elvis decided to take one last role, and this time he was supposed to act as Carolyn Jones's love interest. Everything was going well during filming, until, surprise, Carolyn's health issues struck again. She came down with a terrible fever while filming, but she wasn't going to let her health stop her from playing this particular role. So Carolyn mustered the strength and continued acting. Here's where it gets interesting. When it came time for the romantic scene, Carolyn literally begged not to kiss him. She desperately wanted that part of the scene to be removed because she was afraid that she would make him sick through the kiss. Can you picture that conversation? Elvis, I know every woman in America would kill to be in my position right now, but I'm genuinely worried about giving you this fever. Elvis Presley managed to ease the situation with a little humor by saying he hoped the effect of the kiss would get him out of the army. Even sick, even worried about her co-star's health, Carolyn delivered. She was able to act all her scenes successfully with the support of her colleagues, and in the end, the film turned out to be a huge success. This success kept her momentum going until she landed the role that would define her career forever. It was actually her former husband, Aaron Spelling, who convinced her to take the role of Morticia. Yes, you read that right. Her ex-husband convinced her to take the most famous role of her career. But that role came with controversy nobody saw coming. The character that scandalized America. When The Addams Family premiered in the 1960s, America wasn't ready for what they saw on screen. And no, it wasn't the Gothic mansion or the macabre humor that shocked them. It was the romance. Charles Addams, the creator of the Addams Family cartoons, personally chose Carolyn to play Morticia. She was an avid fan of his cartoons, and the two became good friends. This should have been perfect. right? The creator himself, hand-picking her for the role. The show was groundbreaking in ways that seem almost quaint now. Several people were taken aback by her on-screen romance with her husband. Some claimed that the romantic chemistry between Morticia and Gomez was too much. Clearly, people in the 60s would not be able to handle the romance on screen these days. Think about that. In the 1960s, showing a married couple genuinely attracted to each other was considered scandalous. Her role led to serious controversy, and several people condemned her actions. The actress, who was only playing her role, wasn't deterred by the comments. She explained at the time, "I loved that show. I was sorry to see it go. Morticia was the perfect role for me because my sense of humor is just slightly off-center." But the controversy didn't hurt the show's success. The show turned out to be a major hit, garnering several fans who looked forward to new episodes. The show brought her a whole new set of fans, the teenagers. Carolyn threw herself into the role with typical dedication. During filming, she wore a custom-made $500 dress that was so tight her weight couldn't fluctuate throughout the series, and she owned 260 pairs of shoes, saying, "It sounds extravagant, but I love shoes." The show's success made her even more famous and opened more doors for her. It is safe to say that this very role that was condemned by some was the role that made the actress a macabre icon. But then Hollywood did what Hollywood does best. It broke her heart. Despite its success, ABC chose to cancel The Addams Family after only 2 seasons, leaving Carolyn heartbroken and typecast. Drop a comment if you think The Addams Family should have run longer than 2 seasons, because what happened to Carolyn after the show ended will absolutely break your heart. When success became a prison. After the success of the show, Carolyn spent the next few decades doing the very thing she loved the most: acting. She kept on facing challenges from failed marriages to her ill health, but none of these stopped her from acting. But here's the cruel irony. The role that made her famous also made her unemployable for serious dramatic work. She was married 4 times total, to Don Donaldson, Aaron Spelling, Broadway musical director Herbert Green, and finally Peter Bailey Britton. Each marriage brought its own hopes and disappointments, but Carolyn kept working, kept pushing forward. The 1970s and early 1980s were a mixed bag for her. She could get work, but it was always variations on Morticia, the spooky, gothic, slightly off-center character. She'd created such an iconic portrayal that audiences couldn't see her as anything else. Unfortunately, her health kept on deteriorating in the 1980s, and she knew that her end was close. In March 1981, she was diagnosed with colon cancer, but kept the diagnosis secret from most colleagues, telling them she was being treated for ulcers. Can you imagine that strength? Fighting a battle for your life while pretending everything's fine because you don't want to worry people, or, worse, lose work opportunities? To fulfill her final wish, she tied the knot with her longtime boyfriend, Peter Bailey Britton, whom she'd been with for 5 years, in 1982. On her wedding day to Peter Bailey Britton in September 1982, knowing her time was limited, she made herself up as glamorously as possible and wore a lace and ribbon cap to cover her hair loss from chemotherapy treatments. Even facing the end, she was still performing, still making sure she looked perfect for the people she loved. But her most incredible performance was yet to come. Her final, heroic performance. What Carolyn did next will leave you absolutely speechless. Despite being confined to a wheelchair and working in tremendous pain, Carolyn continued filming her role as Myrna Clegg on the soap opera Capital, determined to keep acting until she literally couldn't get the words out of her mouth anymore. She showed extraordinary courage, appearing for work while secretly undergoing chemotherapy. Her co-star, Jane Daly, said she had that in her, that she was going to keep on playing Myrna Clegg until she literally couldn't get the words out of her mouth anymore. She was absolutely indomitable. Indomitable. That's the perfect word for Carolyn Jones, isn't it? From childhood abandonment to surgical transformation, from missed opportunities to typecasting, from health battles to personal heartbreak, she never, ever gave up. Ever thoughtful even in her final days, Carolyn made arrangements to donate her beloved Morticia costume and black wig to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and her collection of Addams Family scripts was donated to UCLA by her widower, ensuring that future generations could study her iconic work. Sadly, the actress passed away the following year after a long battle with colon cancer. She fell into a coma in July 1983 at her home in West Hollywood and passed away on August 3, 1983, at age 53. She had told her sister Bette that she wanted her epitaph to be, "She gave joy to the world," a testament to how she saw her life's mission. the legacy that endures. Her passing certainly left a void in the industry at the time. Several years have passed by, but she is still remembered as an impeccable actress with a determined spirit. Her body was cremated and her ashes were interred in her mother's crypt at Melrose Abbey Memorial Park and Mortuary in Anaheim, California. She'd come full circle, back to the mother who'd shared her birthday, who'd been her earliest supporter in those dark days after her father's abandonment. Here's what gets me about Carolyn Jones's story. She spent her entire life transforming herself for other people's approval, but her greatest transformation was internal. From that terrified little girl hiding from her grandfather's rage to the woman who worked until her final breath, she became exactly who she was meant to be. The tragedy isn't that she changed her appearance for Hollywood. It's that she felt she had to. But the triumph? The triumph is that despite everything the industry threw at her, despite all the personal pain and professional setbacks, she never stopped giving joy to the world. That's the real Carolyn Jones, not just Morticia Adams, though that was magical. The real Carolyn was the woman who turned every obstacle into an opportunity, every setback into a comeback, and every ending into a new beginning. And that epitaph she wanted. She gave joy to the world. Mission accomplished, Carolyn. Mission accomplished. If Carolyn's story moved you like it moved me, then you need to hear about the other forgotten stars who sacrificed everything for Hollywood dreams. The industry has buried so many incredible stories of courage, transformation, and resilience. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because these legends deserve to have their stories told. And I'm going to make sure they're never forgotten again. Your subscription helps keep their memories alive.